Because so much of my content is about politics lately, I haven't really spent that much time talking about ethical omnivory with respect to my permaculture ethics and my food preferences, cultural preferences, and my understanding of local sustainable agriculture. So I haven't really interacted with that many self-righteous vegans lately. And I do want to say, our family was mostly vegetarian for a very, very long time until we started buying half a cow. And sometimes we buy half a pig or half a lamb from local farmers where I know how those animals were raised. I know the conditions under which they lived. We are not willing to buy factory farmed meat. We have not for many, many years. In fact, when my kids were very little, my daughters who are now adults were very little, we listened to Barbara Kingsolver's Animal Vegetable Miracle on book CD from the library. I had it on the kitchen counter and my kids would have like their little tea party on the kitchen floor and I'd be cooking. And one of my daughters was like, we can't keep buying factory farmed meat. And we were already eating very, very little meat because we couldn't afford it. We ate and still do eat a lot of lentils and beans. And that was it for us. We're like, okay, well, we're just not going to eat meat until we can afford ethical sources. And so it took many years until we were able to get in with a farmer who I know how his cows are raised and how they're treated. And we buy half a cow for 6 people. Half of a cow feeds 6 people for a year. And those animals are raised with respect. But whenever I talk about ethical omnivory, I get vegans in my comments who fail to understand that we don't actually really give a shit about your dietary preferences. The fact that you think other people have not carefully thought through the way that they are eating and that maybe they know better than you what they're going to put into their bodies and why. Maybe they know better than you their culturally appropriate foods. Maybe they know better than you what constitutes ethical eating for them. Arrogance and presumption of people who get into my comments or into the comments of other folks, especially Indigenous folks. This is pretty common on Twitter, especially vegans coming in trying to tell Indigenous folks that it's unethical for them to eat their traditional foods. This is why I say that vegan activism tends to have very strong notes of white supremacy. There is a vegan activist to alt-right pipeline, to white supremacy pipeline. It is very strong. Anytime you are restricting the way other people eat, anytime you think that you should be telling other people what foods they can and cannot consume, yeah, that's going to be an alt-right pipeline. I absolutely agree that we need humane farm practices in this country. I absolutely agree that feedlot agriculture, that confinement operations are cruel, they're inhumane, they are absolutely something that we need strong legislation to push back against. We need huge reforms in the way that we raise our livestock, and also we need all kinds of protections for the workers that are in the meatpacking industry that are working butchering animals. Those are very unsafe jobs with highly exploited laborers, often undocumented. As a permaculturist, my 3 ethics are earth care, people care, and fair share. And the meat industry in the United States violates all 3 of those. That is why we do not buy feedlot meat. We don't buy what my kids call unhappy meat, because we're not willing to support that industry that is cruel to animals, cruel and exploitive to workers, and entirely unsustainable, ecologically irresponsible, and funnels massive profits into these huge corporations and right into the pockets of CEOs and billionaires. It's totally unsustainable and totally unethical. But you can treat animals with respect and still be an omnivore. In fact, that is entirely why we are omnivores, but why we are very conscious in the quantity of meat that we eat and where it is sourced. And I would never presume to tell somebody else what foods are appropriate for them culturally and what foods are appropriate for them in terms of their diet. And I would just really encourage other people to think about when you are trying to police somebody else's food that they're putting into their bodies, how it is that you are now susceptible to being sucked down an alt-right pipeline, because alt-right pipelines are all about coercion, control, limiting. It's all about judgment. It's all about purity. And very, very much so, the vegan to alt-right pipeline is really ramped up in this country. How many vegans on social media have turned out to be right-wing grifters? How many of these accounts promoting vegan diets end up promoting orthorexia, end up promoting all of the kind of disordered body image, body shaming that goes hand in hand with fascism, because skinny is in under fascism. Disordered eating is in under fascism. I know lots of lovely vegans, right? I have family members who are vegan, I have lots of friends who are vegan. That's not the same thing as vegan activists, particularly online. And we would all do well to be aware of how our own purity fallacies, our own desire for purity, how that very much leads to the alt-right. It very much leads into white supremacy. It very much leads into coercion and control when you think that you have a right to have that kind of power over somebody else. And yeah, just really encourage folks to be aware of the rhetoric that they're repeating and the way that the alt-right has a vested interest in you believing in these particular modes of control. Love it for you if you're vegan. Awesome. I fully support your choice to eat whatever you feel is ethical and appropriate. Our family will continue to be omnivores.